everyone, welcome to Winter of Code and the Tech Talks. So today we have Niharika Srivastava with us, who is a software engineer at Gojek. She will be talking about opportunities and diversity in technology. So let's have her. Hi.
Hey, hi Somi. How are you doing? Am I audible?
Hi. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing
Yeah,
well.
you're
I hope
audible. Yeah.
all right. I hope everyone is safe during this pandemic. Okay. All right. So I guess we're live. So let me start. Hello everyone. I am Niharika Srivastav and I am currently working as a software engineer at Gojek Tech in Bangalore. And I graduated last year from Triple IT Allahabad, so it was in 2020. Hence, I also belong to the Triple IT family. All right, great. So today I am actually going to talk to you guys about the various opportunities and initiatives that tech industries take to to enable diversity in the field. And before we actually start discussing that and more, I would like all of you watching to actually just take a pause and think, why do we even need diversity initiatives to begin with? I mean, what is it solving? But then again, that is actually a simple question to answer. Diversity initiatives lessen the gender gap that is hugely still prevailing in the tech industry, right? But then you actually have a follow up question. Why is there a gender gap that needs to be filled? Why is there a gender gap that needs to be normalized in this industry? And well, if you like it or not, unfortunately, it's because of the fact that even today, it is kind of very difficult to find a woman who is equally empowering and confident in her skills. And it's not something that women are born with. It's just that women have been suppressed over the years so much that they've started to feel a little less over the years. Now, again, this is me just not talking about specific people. This is me talking about in a general situation. And if I talk about myself in particular, there have been times in my entire life till now that I have thought to myself, oh my God, I'm really not that good enough compared to so and so. And when I look around myself and I see uh, there are women who are underrepresented in this technology field and underrepresented enough to support me, I kind of feel maybe I'm not that good. So, when I was actually preparing my slides for this talk, I thought to myself, what do I want my title slide to be? And I couldn't think of a better thing than this Billie Eilish song called Therefore I Am. Hence, the title of my today's presentation is I Think, Therefore I Am. And what that translates to in our context, in the field of technology and diversity per se, is that women and men actually, regardless of gender, whoever is watching, I want you to know that you are here because of your merits and because of your skills and because you have the ability to think, and therefore you deserve this. So I'd invite all of you watching to just have this concept in mind while we start to deep dive into all the amazing opportunities that these tech industries have for you awaiting during your undergraduate. All right, great. By the way, so here is a QR code. If anyone is interested, these land you to the slides itself. Okay. All right, so let me start with a brief talk outline of what this presentation is going to be for the next few minutes. So I'm going to basically start with my tech journey till now, which is going to cover the basic 4 years of my BTech at Triple IT Allahabad, how I deep dived into certain concepts and what were my experiences. Then I'm going to talk about any difficulties if I face. Well, obviously, there were a lot of difficulties that I faced during the time, and we'll just talk about how to navigate those. I'm sure everyone gets that. Then we would actually come to the more interesting part of the talk, where I'm going to talk about various open source opportunities, which are listed down in this, and we're going to talk about all of those in a very verbose manner. And then finally, when you've had all that idea in your mind, we're going to see what we can do as our next actionable steps and how we can basically have a forward growth in our career. Okay, awesome. So let's start with my academic journey for the 4 years of my BTech. So I was a first year. I came in the college. I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. Since it's triple IT, we all know how the first year we don't have in first year how we don't have all the faltu subjects. So we started with coding right on from the first sem, and obviously I didn't have as much knowledge about anything, what coding was, what web development was, what app development was. So I decided the best way to gain as much knowledge as possible was to start attending hackathons. I had no idea how to make stuff, but I knew I could be in teams with people who knew how to make stuff, and while they were working on projects, I could be looking at what they're doing. I could understand their thought process. I could interact with other people, and then finally understand the and get that entire vibe of what a development process looks like. So after they were attending hackathons, then I started giving coding contests just because I wanted to know what's the format of coding contest like, what is the kind of difficulty, what are the kind of topics I need in order to excel, right? Then in my college, we actually had workshops, and I'm pretty sure like every colleges have a technical society, right? And then these technical societies have various divisions which cater to a certain concept in the field of IT. So I had various divisions conducting workshops for web development, app development, computer vision, graphics, cybersecurity, even concepts of electronics. So I started to attend all of these workshops. They were introductory, and I got so much idea as to what each field in IT catered to, and I got an idea of, okay, this is what I need to learn. This is where my interest lies. So I should be targeting on so and so skills. So, and then obviously, because I just gotten I'd just come to college. And then I was away from my parents. I had to study to make them happy. So yeah, that's a given. But the takeaway from my first year, if I look back, is the fact that I didn't know much, but instead of being overwhelmed by all of this, I decided to explore what all opportunities I have, right? Okay. Then in second year, I started to get my hands a little dirty with code. So I started to learn JavaScript. I made games, little small games, so that I could understand their concepts. I started to play around with several web APIs, and then started to make simple working projects like a mini clock, or just a mass emailer, something like that. Then I started to learn other hardcore concepts like object oriented programming. And then I used to okay, yeah, and then this was the time when I actually got to know about what Google Summer of Code was, or what Outreachy was. So in second year, I found out there was something known as open source. I wasn't quite sure what it meant by this time, but I thought that I should give it a try. So in second year, I applied for both Google Summer of Code and Outreachy, and I got heavily rejected by both of them. And then I thought, okay, that means that I shouldn't stop, but instead I should make my skills a little better. So then I started to get involved in all these teams in my college, tech teams that would be conducting workshops, like how you have DSC being led right now. So if you're a part of a team like that, you actually get to learn a lot, because there are many components in a team that work like clockwork. And then you understand, okay, I mean, you build leadership skills and of course technical knowledge. So that kind of exposure is also necessary when you're in a college setting. Then in my third year, I started to actually get involved in a little bit of data science, and that interested me a lot. Also, in third year, that is when companies come in for internships. So that's when I got an internship at Gojek Tech. We can talk about that later in Q&A if anyone has any doubts. Also, while I did get an internship at Gojek, I was trying for all the big FANG companies just because why not? So I tried for Google and Microsoft, and I got rejected from all of those. So, yes, it's disheartening then, but then the point is that you have to keep going and you have to only take all of those as a stepping stone, right? Also, in my third year, something very important that happened is that I started to get aware about all of these various scholarships that were available to undergraduate students, and which some of them were only limited to women in general. And to be honest, I was in third year when I got to know about this, and I kind of feel I don't know, upset that I didn't know about these earlier, like in my second year maybe. So I could have prepared a little better. But when I started to know what these scholarships are, these various kinds, what their processes are, I started to apply to them. And I mean, it's not a spoiler, but I got rejected from basically most of them. So, but the process of applying to each scholarship was actually very thorough, made me realize how much more I need to work on in order to be better at what I do, right? So it gave me a direct path. And then in in later part of the third year, I start like things started to pick up for me. So I finally went to Smart India Hackathon, and my team won, so which was a good thing. And then also I reapplied in Outreachy internship. This time I was a little more focused, I had my skill sets a little more up to date and polished, and I got selected as an Outreachy intern for the Fedora project. And I yeah, we'll talk about that later. So that happened in third year. And then finally in fourth year, I was continuing to apply to all of these scholarships that I knew about. And then I ended up winning three scholarships, and I went to these conferences abroad, and I ended up giving talks over there, which was, I think, one of the best experiences an undergraduate student can have. And the exposure is just amazing. There were some acceptances, there were many rejections. It's not like that. It's like if I apply for 10 scholarships, I'll get accepted to one, so the ratio is always there. But the key learning from all of this is that you have to keep going, you have to try. If you don't try, there is no point, right? Yeah. And then finally, for my like, I think in every triple IT it happens that your last semester is reserved for just internship or a project. So in my last semester, I decided that I do not want to do another industrial internship like Gojek or Outreachy. I want to do research. And since I was always interested in data science, so I decided to pursue a research assistantship at a university called Singapore University of Technology and Design. It was in Singapore. So that was how my fourth year went. So looking back at all of these 4 years, there was I mean, I would, if you ask me, I'd say that there was a lot of exploration to do. I wasn't sure of what I was doing when all my other friends were working. I mean, were giving coding contests and doing lead code and whatnot. I always felt like open source was something which was new and interesting and had a lot of possibilities, and no one had explored it as much. So I thought, okay, you know what, let me try to put my hands in open source. So something that I'd want all of you to take back from all of this timeline is that there are way too many things to explore in the field of IT today, like as we speak. What I've done is a very small subset. I want everyone to just explore madly what you can do and see how things turn out well for you. Okay. So obviously we're coming to the difficulties part. So while I've been talking about I did this and not this and whatever, I obviously, it wasn't like I just thought I want to do something and I went for it and it happened. there were way too many difficulties at every single point when I was about to start a new project or just apply for a scholarship or apply for a talk at a conference. I would think, obviously I'm not good enough, not better than anyone else who is applying. I mean, and then I would just look around in even in my college, and I would look around, look at all the boys or all these other seniors, and I would think I just don't have the required skills. And so it just became a habit, when I was constantly being questioning my abilities. And it kind of like made me a little scared to try new things. But at the same time, it's important that you realize that you have a problem like that. And the thing is, it's a very common thing to be insecure, but the main thing is to get out of it. And I'd like to, and how did I get out of it? So, like, let me share a story. So I was actually in a conference in Europe. It's actually called Flock to Fedora. It's a contributor conference just for the Fedora project. And I was there. It was my first time at a conference, and I was giving two talks over there. And this leadership from Red Hat comes to me and he says, he's giving me all these ideas how I could be enhancing in my talk into this wonderful project. And I just tell him, of course I can't do that, I'm not that good enough at all. And he just looks at me and he says, I think you're suffering from imposter syndrome. And I had no idea what that meant. But then I started to read about it, and the more I read about it, I realized I think I am suffering from imposter syndrome. And you know what? I think all of us are suffering from imposter syndrome. So let's just read what imposter syndrome is. So it's a belief that you're inadequate and an incompetent failure, despite evidence that indicates you're skilled and quite successful. In short, it's a hot mess of harmfulness. It's bad for you, and it eats you away. And imposter syndrome, this is how it works. It's like, and I, so you think that, so the blue circle over here is what you think you know. And then you look around yourself at the great pool of people and you think, okay, this is the amount of people what others know. And such a small subset, you're basically insignificant. But in reality, what is happening is, this is what you know, and this is what the others know. So you all know a subset of everything, and the amount of knowledge you have is diverse, so not everyone can know everything. And you know I when I started to read more about it, I started to feel a little better, because it made me realize that, okay, I'm not the only one who thinks that I'm not good enough. But the truth is, I am. It's just that my skill sets are a little different from the others, and I have my own advantages. And then I started to communicate with my peers, with my seniors, with my juniors. I started to see, am I the only one who feels that way? And turns out everyone is insecure, and everyone goes through existential crisis and imposter syndrome. But the key takeaway is to realize that we all have flaws, but we all have our own massive advantages, and that is what makes us so much worthy, right? So we have to actually get it's so it's okay to question if you're good enough for something. But it's also important to just pause for a moment and look back at your achievements and think, yes, I have been able to do that, however small it was, and hence I am worthy of it, right? So this is how you start to build confidence, and this is how you start to grow, and are you start to become fearless in what you're trying to do. So there is actually a very cool initiative by Google. It's called hashtag I am remarkable. And what it, I mean, the tagline is, if it's not bragging if it's based on facts, right? So if I come and ask you what are your achievements, and if you feel shy in telling them, well, do not be shy. Those are facts. Those are stuff that you did on your merit, and you should be absolutely proud of them, right? say if and however small they are, like I have some during my entire 4 years I have people coming to me and saying that, I mean, I only know Git, and the most I know is how to raise a pull request. But hey, you know how to raise a pull request, which is much, much more than someone who doesn't know how to use Git at all. So that is remarkable in some sense, right? So you cannot be downplaying yourself at all times, and you have to be really confident about who you are. You need to be proud of that. So given all of this motivation in mind, I'm hopeful that people are going to feel less insecure about their skills, more confident that there are other people who are there in the community to support you. And that is actually the whole concept of open source. We're a community, we're a family. If you don't know, we help without judgment. And this is why open source is something which is so welcoming, and open source is something which is so full of opportunities for increasing diversity. So, all right, you know what? Let's start with what are these specific opportunities in open source that I keep talking about, right? Okay. All right, let me start with the most popular thing that I've heard in my entire BTech, which is outreachy internships and Google Summer of Code internships. So I've like listed down differences or similarities between the two. I'll just go through both of them briefly. So as we both know, I mean, we all know that outreachy is limited to a certain section of the society. It's limited to underrepresented people in society. So it's limited to women, all kinds, and LGBTQ, cis, trans, and just Hispanic Latinas. Okay. And Google Summer of Code, on the other hand, there are no restrictions on who is eligible. So any undergraduate or any student, actually, I take that back, any student is eligible for Google Summer of Code. Outreachy, by the way, has no age limit. Even if you're 30, 45, 80, you're allowed if you fall under the eligibility bracket for that. Okay, so outreachy happens twice a year. One is from May to August, and the second is December to March. GSOC happens from May to August. So both of these happen for a duration of 3 months. The stipend in outreachy is a total of $6,000, out of which 500 um, is actually reserved for as a travel stipend. So what a travel stipend means is that they will pay you $5,500 in hand in cash, and the rest $500 is what you have. Uh, it can be reimbursed if you decide to go to a conference to present a talk, any talk, or you can just go to a conference and be a part of the conference, and up to $500 it will be reimbursed. Okay, and in Google Summer of Code, the stipend right now it was 3,000 a year back. Now it has been changed to $1,500. So that's that. And in both Outreachy and GSOC, we have projects which vary in difficulty. Some of them are really beginner projects. Some of them are documentations as well. Some of them are just testing your code project. Then it starts to build in difficulty, and then you can all in Outreachy they're actually marked with difficulty. In GSOC you have to figure it out your own. You can ask your mentor and then understand the difficulty of the project based on your skill set. In Outreachy, you have a very dedicated mentorship program while you're doing your internship. There is a mentor, there is a project, you're working on it, and there is constant communication between you and the mentor. There is constant feedback process between you and the mentor. There's the same feedback process in GSOC as well. It may not be that thorough. It actually depends on the organization. And then, as we discussed before, in Outreachy, you get to travel to conferences and events because of the travel stipend. In GSOC, it again depends on the organization. Like for example, if you're a part of the Fedora project or if you're a part of Mozilla. So these open source communities actually have funds which let their selected students to travel abroad for conferences one time. So again, depends on the organization. And in both of these internship programs, you can become mentors later. So first you act as participants, and then after a while, when you're starting to get hold of the code, you've become solid in concepts, you start to become mentors, and you have the option of doing that. And then lastly, but it's one of the best experiences that I've had in Outreachy is that there are regular chats and alumni chats and mentor chats that are held in Outreachy bi-weekly, and we all of the Outreachy interns, regardless of what project you're working on, what open source organization you're working for, we all just come together and we talk about just random things, sometimes code, sometimes fun. We talk about what blogs we wrote in the past, and it's just a very good open source community family like feeling. So yeah, that is what happens. So I was a part of Outreachy, and my project was on Fedora modularity. It was a backend project. The language was in Object C and Python. So we can talk about that later if anyone has any doubts. I'll move on. So again, when I tell people about that there are internships like Outreachy and GSOC, the first most popular question I get to hear is, how do I even start? I mean, there is this huge code base and I have absolutely no idea how to start. So can you please give me guidance? Now, given that, I mean, that is a very open-ended question. Every organization works differently, right? But I would be trying to make all of you understand how I started, and maybe you all can take something from that and then apply it to any organization that you feel like working for. And this example is, again, this is not related to Outreachy at all. This can be for any internship program ever. GSOC, Outreachy, Google Summer of Talks, whatever. So the first thing I started is, because I have absolutely no idea about the code base, I start with baby steps, right? So I take small steps, and I know the easiest thing to do would be documentation, because it doesn't take that much code understanding. It I don't know, it just feels like documentation is easy, which is a myth. But then sure, I thought let's start with documentation. So over here we see that there was a good first issue. That's how you can see if it's a beginner level issue or not on GitHub. So we see that there is a code snippet in C, and it's doing certain things, right? And then the issue was to actually change this code snippet into Python using APIs that were being used in the code base. And I just needed to document this Python code base. C was already there. So, okay, great. So I saw that, all right, let's start with this. So they're making a module using some function. They're creating a stream using the module that they just created. Then they're creating a dependency list using the stream we just created. And then there is a for loop. So we're going through every object in the dependency list. And then we're doing something with each element of it. Okay, so this is what I need to convert to Python using their code base. So I started just searching the entire code base with what is an equivalent Python function for this, and I found it, merged index.get module, and I made a module. Similarly, I made a stream, I made a dependency list, and then finally oh god, this is crazy, sorry about that. And then finally I went through every element in the dependency list and I did something with it. And I do not know if it was right or wrong. I tried it on my Python interpreter, it worked. I was like, okay, let's just give it a try. I sent in a pull request and it got merged there and there. And that's it. I just contributed to a big organization like Fedora project in just 5 lines of code. So believe me, that feels amazing when you first try it. and then there is no stopping, because now you have confidence that yes, you can do this, this is that easy, right? So now we go on to we start to tackle a little more difficult things, because now we're confident that we can do this, right? So in this case, testing is actually an important part in development process. You have to test your code that you have written for your logic to see if what you wrote is actually what you're expecting. So in this I had to test. It's very easy. I just had to test if two objects, they were equal or not. So I am given two objects, defaults 1 and defaults 2, and I have to check whether these objects of the type module MD defaults are they equal or not. So I started with creating these objects as null. Then then I instantiated them into a default subject. I asserted if this default object that I just created, is it even of the type defaults? If it's not, then obviously there's something wrong with this code over here, and I'll know that something needs to be fixed. I created my second defaults object, and I checked if that is of the type defaults. And then finally, after all of this is true, I checked if defaults 1 equals defaults 2, and I just tested my entire code using that. So again, small easy logic line by line. If you see it in one go, you will just think what is even written. This is actually written in object C. So since I was in third year, I had a fair bit of knowledge about C++ and C and Python. So if I started to read the code line by line, I'll understand, yes, what this means. I think anyone with a fair bit of knowledge can understand that. And then I sent in a PR, and yes, it got merged. So this is how you start to iterate your process, right? You start to grow, and you finally start becoming better at this. And you keep going, and then finally, before you know it, everything's a piece of cake, and you're selected for every internship there ever is, right? So yeah. Okay, great. So that was Outreachy and GSOC and how you can possibly start your journey. We can have a better discussion later if anyone wants. Let's start with all the different kinds of diversity scholarships that I came across during my BTech, which I kept talking about that I got rejected from most of them. Um, but something I'd want to point out is that these scholarships, a lot of them are not just related to women. A lot of them are actually open for all. And lucky that we are, even Asians come underrepresented in technology. So yeah, we most of them are gender neutral. Okay, so if I go with the first one, which is Google Scholarships, so there are three. I mean, there's a link over here. You can all check that out later. There are three that are related to our use case: Women Tech Makers, Grace Hopper Conference, which happens worldwide, and there's a similar in India, which is Grace Hopper's Conference India, which takes place in Bangalore every year. And then there's a Panchapakation Memorial Scholarship. So in all of these, what happens is that they all have different kinds of eligibility requirements. For example, Grace Hopper India happens if you're eligible to apply for the scholarship when you're in the fourth year, and you can find all of those details on this link over here. But the main thing is that all of these, they provide you with a stipend that you won as an award money, and they provide you with one-time trip to either the Google office in Silicon Valley, or like a conference, the Grace Hopper conference that is, or Women Tech Makers. So something which is very cool about Google conferences, which even other conferences have started to inculcate, is the fact that when we're talking about conferences, and why you should be attending them, um, the fact is that these aren't just places where people come and talk and leave, right? These are career fairs. If you know what career fairs are, these are booths of companies, tech industries, they set up their booths and they invite you to come and talk to them, to ask them about any open positions they have so that you can work for them. You know, if you're actually like lucky, you can just like hand in your resumes then there and there, get shortlisted and be called for an interview sometime later. So these are career fairs which are um, like very thoughtfully crafted to accelerate your development in this IT field. So apart from networking and listening to all of these talks, it is very much beneficial to visit these booths and have a healthy interaction with all these tech booths like Red Hat, or even Google has it, Facebook, Mozilla, and most of it's not like only open source companies have their career booths, even other non-open source companies have it too. So that's cool. Like for example, even PyCon, they have a lot of career fairs too. Okay. The second one is Linux Foundation scholarships. These are, I think, one of the most generous scholarships ever there are. And why I say this is, so over here you see there are two links. One is diversity scholarships and the other is Lift. So the diversity scholarships, they lead you to a place where you apply to get a scholarship to go to a conference that is being held by Linux Foundation. And these are like travel stipends. So what happens is, if you get selected for these scholarships, they fund your travel abroad and your stay and your food if you're that lucky. uh, Food is optional, but okay, they fund your travel and stay, and you get to visit the conference as a participant. They also include the conference fee, which is $800 or 500 if you're a student. So, and these scholarships are available for both men and women. For men, if you want to apply under the diversity quota, you have to like specify that you're an Asian man, so then you will be eligible. For women, you just have to mention that you're a woman, and then you have to fill why you want a scholarship and other kind of questionnaire, and then it's based on merit, but these are very generous. So I have one like three scholarships from Linux Foundation, and I did go and I gave a talk also, and the experience is just amazing because you know these are huge conferences in a foreign country where, and you're giving a talk, so there's a whole lot of networking that's happening. So it's like it's a good exposure experience. And then Lyft over here is slightly different. It's actually like GSOC and Outreachy. So these are internship programs that are specific to Linux Foundation, and they also happen for 3 months, and they are open to all genders, and they give you a stipend of $6,000 for 3 months. So, yeah. So you work on Linux Foundation's code base. Yeah, and you can have your own proposals as well. All right. So if we move on to Red Hat scholarships, we again have diversity scholarships for various conferences that you can apply to. Same funda as Linux Foundation, and then this is something very cool. So they have an award called Women in Open Source Awards. And there are two categories. One is Women in Open Source Academic Awards, and the other is Women in Open Source Community Award. So the academic one is for BTech, bachelor's people. And you have to fill in, and you have to fill in a questionnaire talking about why, what kind of impact have you made in the tech industry till now, and there are a whole lot of other questions. And the winner gets a very very generous stipend of 10,000 US dollars, and they have a whole video made which is like very movie like. So the award is actually very generous and very prestigious. They also have 5 finalists, which were selected for this award. So they didn't win, they were finalists, but like they were the top 5 finalists, and after out of that, one was the winner. So I happened to be a finalist for the academic award. I didn't win, but I'd like to point out the person who won. The lady who won, she was actually a PhD student, and she had been contributing to open source for more than 10 years. She was contributing to Wikimedia. She used to write a lot of pages on Wikipedia and publish them, and they were all sanity checked. And you know, I mean, see, she was contributing to the society. She had nothing to gain from writing those pages, but she did because of her passion, because of her willingness to give back to the society. And here she won an award for that, and I think that is commendable. All right. So, and then over here we have 3 scholarships, which is like which is pertaining to certain industries. So we have Adobe Research, we have Nutanix, and then there is something which is called Lady Meherbai D Tata in Education. So all of these, they kind of help you to pursue. I mean, if you win scholarships in these, they help you to pursue your your current education and your future studies. So, for example, these two, Adobe and Nutanix, they fund your tuition fee. And for this one, Lady Meherbai, you kind of see they're funding to get you they fund you sorry, they fund scholarships to go and do your higher studies abroad in US, UK, and Europe. So you're supposed to have an admission at a certain reputed university, and then you can apply for this and they fund you there. So that is something after graduation. Okay. So by the way, this has a lot of links. I will be sharing the slides. You can all just go and have a look. Also pointing out that this is a very small subset of all the available scholarships that there are. So this is to help you have a starting point. These are very popular scholarships and something that you must think of applying to at least once in your BTech life. Okay, cool. So you participated in Outreach and GSOC. You applied to all of the scholarships, but all of that was just, for you. What are you doing for others? So that's when you have all this knowledge and you have to decide that you should share it, right? And there are 2 ways I can think of in which you can share. One is like a speaking, you can have speaking opportunities, or you can be a tech speaker, or you can do mentorship programs. Sorry. So something that I also started to do in my college was to apply for all these speaking opportunities. And I don't know, but very less people know about the kind of format that you can avail when you're trying to put in a proposal for a talk in various conferences. So I have a lot of people that tell me, what do I even talk about? I don't know anything myself. I mean, that's not how it works. So obviously, you know a lot of stuff. It's just a matter of finding the right format that fits for you, right? So okay, there are something known as CFPs, which is full form for call for proposals. And when you see something like, if you follow on Twitter or LinkedIn, and if you see a conference saying CFPs are open, that means they're accepting applications for talks. And this is when you should think to just click on that and see, okay, where can I apply? I don't care if I get selected or not. I just need to apply because I can apply, right? So there are various formats that you're supposed to know. One is called lightning talks. So these talks happen for just 5-10 minutes. That's it. They're very small, they're lightning fast. You need to have a small topic, just just talk about it in a very brief way, keep it interesting, keep it short, and that's it, you're done. But hey, you just spoke in a huge conference, and that's a big plus. So the very first talk that I got selected in was actually a lightning talk for just 10 minutes. I had such little time, but I didn't have much to speak anyway, so that was good for me. And I spoke, and now I can proudly say that I spoke at a conference, right? And you get selected for it, so it's a good achievement in it, that in itself anyway. Then you start to develop sessions. So sessions, last from 30 to 45 minutes. So, for example, this talk being a session, right? Or talks in PyCon, they're like for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. All these other conferences, so these are sessions, they are a little more verbose, they have a little more content, and then you have to try to work your way through, explain every detail, and then that's how you add a proposal for this. There is also something known as poster presentation, which I think is actually very cool. So in triple ITs, in other colleges, obviously there are um, projects that you do in your undergraduate, right, which are part of your curriculum. Like there are semester projects that you work on, and while no one really does those semester projects properly, of course at the end when it's time to submit those projects, you always have to end up writing a paper, correct? I mean, whatever paper that is, but you end up writing a research paper for the semester project that you did. And this is something that I would encourage undergraduates to do. You should try to take that paper that you wrote and convert it into a poster. So now you have a research poster in the form of a presentation, and that is what is meant by poster presentation. So you have a research concept and you make it into a poster, and then you present it in front of an audience. These are very popular within students, and this is something that I also had applied to in PyCon and some others. And then, okay, for example, in PyCon, if your poster gets selected, they fund in PyCon US, they fund the entire travel to US and also your stay. So I think it's worth it, right? Just to apply. And then finally, you have panel discussions, which are a little more higher up, where you have a panel of experts and then they're discussing over a certain topic. I personally haven't ever tried for panel discussions. I think this is a little out of my reach right now, but you are welcome to try whatever suits you. Maybe you're just so much better than me, and then maybe you can actually rock a panel discussion, right? So great. And then we have mentorship programs in Google Coding, Google Summer of Code, Google Summer of Docs, Outreach Sheets, so on and so forth. So every internship program that you have in open source, they also have a mentorship program which is complementary. Google Coding, unfortunately, last year was the last time it is happening, but then I'm sure they have something else that has come up. So in Google Coding, I was again a mentor with Fedora project only, and I was mentoring all these high school students. Anyway, the main point is that now you are at a point where you know that you can contribute effectively to open source. So now it's time to give that give that teaching back, right? And when you're mentoring or when you're speaking, there is a subconsciousness that says, hey, I'm going to be talking to a whole lot of people who may not know what I'm talking about, so I might as well say the right thing, right? I cannot screw this up. So that's why you start to, if you're trying to explain your friends some new concepts, you are going to thoroughly see what those concepts are for yourself. You're going to learn those concepts thoroughly yourself, so that if your friend ever happens to ask you about certain doubts, you're prepared, and that in itself is helping you grow. So mentorship and speaking, I think, is like the best thing ever, because you're growing, others are growing. It's just such a holistic experience to to live. All right. And I think a lot of people have heard of Girl Script Summer of Code, which is again gender neutral. It says Girl Script, but anyone can participate and anyone can mentor. So I was again a mentor in Girl Script Summer of Code. All you have to do is apply for the mentorship form. You have to have you can have a project of your own as a proposal, where you say, okay, this is the project I want other people to work on while I mentor them on how to write code. Or if you don't have a project, you can just say, these are my strong skill sets. So I'd like a project that is making use of this skill set, and then I can help other people learn new concepts. So that's also there. And then obviously I then obviously there is DSC led open source events, which is something similar, and actually exactly what this right now is. DSC groups are all across the country. Every college probably has a DSC group. My college had it too. So the first thing I did when I didn't know where to apply, I asked my peers if there is something that I can talk about, and then we all decided on a talk that would be beneficial to everyone, and that's how I gave my first talk. Right? So if you do not know where to start, look in your college and start. I mean, start small, you'll go big. I think that's how it works, right? Okay, great. So we're finally like understanding what we need to do during our BTech. This is after graduation. So to be honest, I have, like I said, I graduated last year itself. I'm very new. I don't have a plan myself, just like, Phoebe over here. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm figuring out stuff just like all of you are figuring out stuff at your end. But I do have certain knowledge of what are the available options after graduation. So the first one being the obvious, that you have campus placements or you apply off campus, and then you have the industrial jobs, like how I'm working at WoC Tech right now. It's in Bangalore. So something to note, some companies have diversity initiatives within those companies, like they hire specifically women because they're trying to normalize the gender gap. Some don't. And uh, okay, Gojek doesn't. So you have to, so like for example, Goldman Sachs and Adobe, they have a proper diversity hiring, which is different from their normal hiring. So if like women want to pursue that specifically, that is something that they can look at. There are many links available online that you can just say diversity specific hiring, and you can explore that. You can obviously go for graduate degrees, masters, give your GRE, and go. I honestly don't know much about this either. But then, okay, then there are direct PhD. So this is something which not many people are aware of. Many people think that first you're supposed to do your masters and then you can do your PhD. But nowadays, something that is very um, popular is the concept of a direct PhD. And what it does is, just from your after you've graduated from your BTech, you can apply for PhD. And the most of the direct PhDs, they're fully funded. So they fund your the stipends that they provide are more than enough for your stay and your food and wherever. And all of these direct PhDs actually happen in collaboration with other universities abroad as well. So it's not like you're just staying in one good reputed university, which is not bad at all in itself. But then you go to, like for example, you study for 2 years in one uni, and then go for the other 2 or 3 years in the other, and then complete your PhD like that. And this is good if you're into research, and if you have a strong research background, and if this is something I just this is a concept that I really want to explore in, right? So that is there. And if you're not sure if you're just yet into committing into the whole PhD program, if it's going to be for 6 years or 5 years or whatever, then but you know that you want to go into research in some way. So there are a lot of research fellowships, which are basically you being a research assistant at a lab in a reputed university outside. It could be a university, it could be a research center, and they provide you with a stipend. You can also opt to study certain courses if you want, so you'll get all of those credits. So like for example, there are research fellowships at National University of Singapore and Nantang University of Singapore. So I know most about Singapore because I did a research internship there. But yeah, and then yes, you're the daring kind. You're super awesome. You have a great idea. Please feel free to do a startup. Also hire me in that. And then you can always be an independent contributor. You can do freelancing, consulting with companies, or and actually not in all, regardless of what you do after graduation, before graduation, always try to be involved in the open source community. Why? Because it is just so giving, right? There's just so much to learn and so much to gain, just for not just for you, for everyone involved, right? It is just that welcoming and that um, just holistically improving you. So open source, I think, is the best thing that a person can get involved in the field of IT, and this is something I feel everyone should be in touch with at any point in their career. So yes, I think we've reached like the end of slide. We are just going to quickly talk about what are your next actionable steps, given that all of the information I've just given you. It's kind of easy, but it might feel a little overwhelming or it might feel a little tough, but believe me, it's not. I just talked about imposter syndrome. Everyone feels insecure. I feel insecure even today. But the point is you have to keep going. And when you keep going, you will get there. So just try to participate in as many hackathons. Every time you participate, you'll find something different and something new which clicks. And you might just um you might just get your opening. Okay, this is what I want to do now. Maybe you'll make a project in a hackathon which will end up getting a lot of funding, and then it suddenly becomes a startup idea. So that's there. Try to be involved in teams, tech teams that are responsible for conducting workshops or events in your cities. For example, like I've mentioned Pi Ladies over here, which is a PyCon group just for ladies, which there is a Pi Ladies group in mostly every state in the country. If there isn't one in your state or in your city, feel free to go to their Slack. Tell the organizers that I want to start a Pi Ladies chapter in my city, and they'll make you an admin, and now you're responsible to conduct all kinds of events and gatherings. And it is just imagine girls, not girls just there, and then you're all under one roof, and you're just talking about all these different concepts of tech and something which I don't know, girls don't usually do, but then that's the whole point, right? Girls are supposed to empower other girls, and then we're supposed to work in a team, and then finally just come out as a strong front, right? So that's there. And then, of course, there's pandemic, so there is this new concept of a virtual conference like what we're having right now, but more the better. The fees is basically zero in most of the conferences nowadays. So just try to sit through a tech talk or even TEDx, sit through those, try to understand what are people talking about, what are people working on, what's the kind of new technology that's there. Try to expand your learnings. Of course, you're in IT, you're supposed to code. There's nothing doing if you don't know how to code, but you have to also understand that just coding isn't everything. You have to have a clear vision of why am I coding? What impact is it making if I'm coding, right? It's not about you, it's about everyone else. The most important one, I think, is communicating your ideas. So if you just think that I'm going to take all of this knowledge I have and just be in a corner and I'll just keep coding in a corner with, like I'll just like a hacker or something, that's not going to work. Open source is about sharing and it's about communicating. So you're supposed to teach and learn from others, and you're supposed to just communicate your ideas. It's important to talk. Once you start talking, you realize your ideas and their ideas, you can all just mix them together and make something wonderful happen. But you won't know that until you talk. And yes, so while you're doing all of these awesome things, at one point you will think, okay, I think I should just sit down and build my resume. And you will start writing down all these awesome things that you were doing, and you'll realize your resume is full packed, but it didn't feel like work because you were just trying out new things and you were exploring. And yeah, you were you were in hindsight making a career development. So that was pretty cool. And I could always say do this, do that, but none of it will work until you are confident and until you are fearless. So I'd like to reiterate on my title slide. I think, therefore I am. You are capable to think, and therefore you are here, and you must be fearless in whatever you do, in your ambition, in your dreams. This is how it works. And then finally, of course, everything makes no sense if you are not having fun. You are supposed to have fun. Apart from just coding, you're just like go out, have fun, exercise. It's much needed. But then yeah, have fun in whatever you do, be compassionate about what you do. And overall, it's just, taken the whole experience as a learning step rather than like an obstacle. So I think that is all. We are at the end. This QR code over here, you feel free to scan it. It will get you on the same slide, so you can access all the links that I had shared. These are over here are ways you can contact me. I will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. I am not sure if we are having a Q&A session right now, but okay, yeah. I think I'm done. So thank you everyone, and thank you for listening to me. I hope that someone over there, even if it's just one person, understood or gained something from what I said. And I really like to thank DSC Triple IT Kalyani for having me over. This is your first DSC. I feel really cool to be a part of it. Yeah, I think yeah, that's it. Thanks, man.
That was an amazing session, Niharika. Thank you so much for telling us
Uh,
about so many opportunities that we have in tech. That is amazing. So,
Thank
some
you.
questions I have for you, some questions the community has. So, in first year, you said that you were there to learn and look at other people and what they were doing and understand how it works out. So, how do you prove your worth in the team? Like,
Okay, so the team that I was in my first year, in say for a hackathon, I was a first year who knew nothing about coding, and I had two other people who were in their third year who knew everything about coding. In fact, we actually ended up winning a second prize with no contribution of my own. So what happened is that I told them that I'd like to learn, I'd like to understand what their thought process is in whatever project they're making. So they sat me down, they talked through flowcharts. They made flowcharts of what their project is going to be, how this is going to function. There was no code involved. They were just trying to make me explain the entire flow. They told me to learn PHP, so I learned PHP that night because hackathons happen overnight. They told me to go around, look around all the other teams that are participating in this hackathon, ask them what they are doing, try to understand, see if you find something interesting. And then obviously after all of that happened, they treated me to chips and cold drink, because that's what hackathons are for, right? Free food. So I'm just kidding, but yeah. So when you don't, that's the whole point, right? You said, how do you find your own worth? You're in first year, everything is new to you. I know this is overwhelming, but hey, you're not here to find your own worth, you're here to learn. Eventually there will come a point where you'd be like, I think I know what I'm good at. And maybe it's not that, maybe everyone else is good at the same thing, but hey, at least I am too, right? So that's how you start to grow and you start to build confidence.
that's really nice.
There's a lag. I don't know if I'm facing
Hello?
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, am I yeah, that was a little glitch. So, what were the scholarships that you got? Like the three scholarships you got?
Okay, so I won a scholarship for, I won two scholarships for Linux Foundation events, diversity. So they funded my conference ticket for $800, and they funded my travel to France and USA. So the conference that I had applied for was Open Source Summit in France and in USA. Those were the two. The other one was a scholarship that I got from Flock to Fedora. This was from Fedora project. The conference name was Flock to Fedora. So where was I was sent to Budapest, Hungary, and they funded my travel, my food, my stay. So I also gave two talks over there, and yeah, those were the three scholarships that I got.
That's amazing. That's crazy. Okay, so Like there are a lot of girls who are not from like really well-known colleges. So how would they, overcome the lack of opportunities and difficulties that come when it comes to, companies not coming on their campuses to hire and like that?
So the if we're talking about companies that are not coming, if we the only way to apply to these companies is off campus, right? And for off campus, you need to have a good resume. And like I said, the scholarships that I'm talking about, or say even if you were a team lead in your college, or if you were a part of a hackathon conducting group, or something, some initiative that you took that goes in your resume, and that shows that you're an active member in the society. And obviously these scholarships or coding contests that we keep seeing on Lead Code and Hacker Earth, or Code Chef, these are not limited to colleges, right? Anyone can give them. And all the content that you have, it's a known fact that good colleges don't mean like great education or anything. It's just that we are more, we just know where to look. So now you know where to look, you just have to do a Google search and build your resume. So I don't think that's an obstacle at all. I think not. I think thinking that you can't do it, that's an obstacle, and that should be overcome.
Yeah, like the best part I saw is that in first year you had people to guide you and people who, told you what to do and, helped you out with, stuff. So that's really nice having that environment, that supportive
Right.
environment.
So, but I'd like to point out that it's not like I just went and they started guiding me. I had to tell them that I need to be guided, and then they guided me. So you have to take that first step. Otherwise, they will be like, okay, she doesn't want to learn, then why do I spend my energy, right? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So another question was there, are there companies hiring based on open source achievements?
Yeah. So okay, like Gojek Tech that I work in. I'll name. So there's Gojek, which I work in right now. There is Walmart. They hire too like that sometimes. They've started. There is what was its name? Oh, okay. There is one name which is I can't. I don't remember right now, but
Yeah.
okay. I yeah. So anyway, so for example, in Gojek, what happened is, in all the companies that come, they take the, what is the first round? They take a coding test, right? And then they shortlist and then they have interviews. In Gojek, there was a coding round, but we didn't code based on data structures like the way that you normally do. We had to code a blackjack game. So we were coding a game in 2 hours. So, and then after that, they shortlisted us based on our open source achievements, only open source. If you haven't taken part in open source ever, you're out. So good for all of us. We were doing something in open source, and yeah, Gojek really values open source contributions, and there are many more. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. That was all the questions that we had from our side. So, yeah. So, thanks a lot for being there with us. I think I connected with this talk on some different level. I really enjoyed this talk so much, and I think everyone in the community did. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being there.
Thank you for having me.
So that's it for this session on opportunities and diversity in tech. Hopefully, a lot of people came to know about different opportunities and different scholarships that you can apply to. Even in the general category, I think we had a lot of opportunities that we saw. So good luck to everyone and keep open sourcing. Yeah. Bye bye.